Please pray with me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. More of you, O Christ, less of me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts draw us closer to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Marthas make the world go around, around the world, go around. Marthas make the world go around, and don't you know it's true? Come on here. How many Marthas do we have in here? Come on, I know I'm a Martha. May not be my name, but I know I'm the one back in the kitchen making it all happen. And I know Brian's a Martha, and I know Dan's a Martha. All of us are a Martha at one time or another, right? Just trying to get the stuff done, right? We're in the kitchen, and everybody's out there in the party, right? They're out in the party, and we're getting the food together so everyone can eat. Come on. So this passage, every time it comes around, I'm always I want to defend Martha, because, come on, Marthas make the world go round. If we all stopped doing our Martha duties, wow. First of all, no one would eat. They'd be eating dandelions. They'd be picking things up off the ground. So I want to just introduce you to two of my favorite icons. This particular icon is, guess who? Martha. Isn't this wonderful? Doesn't she look sassy and strong? I'll let you pass it around. Just take a look at Martha. I love that icon of Martha. Don't you think Martha could do anything? She's even in the superhero stance. Marthas are superheroes. And she may come out and is complaining, and I'll get to that in a second. But the truth is, nobody would eat without Martha in the kitchen. So then we have Mary. And this particular icon is of Mary Magdalene. And as most of you who regularly hear Bible things, you know, there's Mary, the Mother of God, and then there's Mary Magdalene, and then there's the other Mary, and then there are other Marys. And sorting out the Marys is basically a complete industry. Scholars have spent literally centuries trying to sort out the Marys. But what's interesting about all the Marys, especially in Luke, but in the other Gospels as well, is that they have a name. You know, most women in the Bible don't have names. A woman came, a woman did this, a woman blah, blah, blah. But Mary and Martha have names, and this is unusual. In fact, we don't think too much of it now because we certainly call each other by names, but in the first century when Luke is writing this down, women are just basically property, and they don't really have names. So this story, the fact that the women are named, is important. It matters. And we know from the other Gospels, especially in John, if we were going to try to write a family history, and I love, Nancy, that you talked about sort of a family history. A lot of people have tried to write sort of a family history of Mary and Martha. And then in John, they have a brother named Lazarus. Well, this is a weird family. Where's the patriarch? Where's the matriarch? Why are three siblings living together? Why aren't they married to other people? I mean, this is odd. This is very odd, actually. This is not what you expect. And they all have names. And of course, the Lazarus story, here comes Martha again. Jesus, if you'd been here, he wouldn't be dead. Right? Come on, Martha. Stand up tall. I'm going to light one further, but now it's not. Okay. So we have this unusual family. It would even be unusual now. Do you know any family where three siblings are living together that they aren't like 90? And even then, that doesn't really happen, does it? They usually have children, they have spouses, they have, right? This is unusual. It's very unusual. Some scholars have said that this was because a certain level of monasticism had already happened by the end of the first century, that they were already living in groups of people who were not marrying and not having children, that they had become like monks and nuns. Some people think that, but we have no idea. Everything is conjecture. So back to our little story of Mary and Martha. And if we want to go from what was happening in the first century, where it's A, strange that they have names, and B, this dialogue is even stranger. Because Mary, the better part, she is sitting at the feet of, which in Greek doesn't mean that Jesus is sitting in a tall chair and she's sitting on the floor. It doesn't mean that at all. Sitting at the feet of is a verb in Greek which means to be a student, to engage in philosophical debate. So she's debating ideas with Jesus, possibly about Scripture. And guess what? In first century Judaism, women weren't allowed to do that either. Women were allowed only to be in the kitchen like Martha and not complain about it, not like Martha, but they weren't allowed to study. And this was true for way past the first century. Anybody ever seen the movie Yentl with Barbara Streisand? She wanted to be a rabbi. Her father taught her to read, to write. Until the 20th century, many, oh, I love this. Somebody's riding a horse down, 4 horses down the street. It's so El Sobrante today. I always love that. Until the 20th century, a lot of women couldn't read or write. They certainly weren't allowed to debate with what Jesus was, I think, seen as, which was a teacher. He was a rabbi. Mary Magdalene called him Rabboni, right? So he was a rabbi. So to be able to debate with him. And this is why many people think that this Mary, Martha's sister, might be Mary Magdalene. I didn't happen to have any icons of other Mary, Mystery Mary. So I brought Mary Magdalene because she not only got a name as Mary, but even more story, because she was very important in the early church. So what should we make of this story that has women not in the traditional roles? I think in the first century, the people hearing this story would have been absolutely shocked. We're not shocked. It's like, oh, it's the old Mary and Martha story yet again. So I'm trying to help us recover a little bit of the shock that these women, Martha comes and is talking back to Jesus, to a rabbi, You come, girl. Come on. You tell him. And Mary is studying and debating the scriptures. Wow. Well, if that isn't good news, I don't know what is. Because it isn't just women, although in Luke is very generous in naming women. In the book of Acts, we find out about all kinds of women. Priscilla and Lydia, the purveyor of purple cloths, and so many women get names in Luke and his second volume, the book of Acts, that some scholars think that Luke might have been a woman. Because Luke cares that much about women. And the other Gospels just kind of, you can't say they don't care about them because they're invisible. They're just not there. They so don't matter that they don't get names and they're not even there. Except in all four Gospels, where are the women and where do they often get names? Anybody. At the cross. Yeah. At the cross. They're the only ones there when Jesus meets his end. The women are there. Because guess what? Marthas make the world go around, go around. And they give birth and they stay to the very end. That's what mothers do. And women, whether they've given birth or not, do that. So what's our takeaway now? Well, if you're a Martha, and I think most of us have an inner Martha, even if we're not constantly living as Martha, and I mean that for all the men in the room as well. We all have that person who's just getting the work done, doesn't feel appreciated because you're doing all the work, and you come out and say, could I get a little help, please? I once reimagined this story, and instead of Jesus saying, you're full of lots of cares and lots of distractions and lots of worries, Jesus might have instead said, oh, okay, and put a towel around his waist, and everybody could have gone in the kitchen. I want that Jesus. And I think eventually we get that Jesus. And I think many men now are that Jesus. They're not going to sit there and say, she's taken the better part. It's going to be, no, let's get the food made. Another opportunity would be, let the food go. Who cares? Sit down. Join the conversation. Be a part of the party. Don't worry about whether we have enough food. If worst comes to worst, I can turn water into wine and loaves and fishes. We'll work it out. Don't miss the opportunity to have these conversations. Because life is short. Life is short. And we may not have a long time to have those conversations. Don't miss it. Don't miss it by having to need to have all the food prepared on time and look good and all of the things. So I'm on the side of both Mary and Martha. Not sure about Jesus in this story, but I am sure about the Jesus who eventually comes into view for us. The Jesus who welcomes everyone, who seeks the best for everyone, who wants you to be who you are, whether you're a Martha or a Mary or you're Lazarus and you're dead. Don't be dead anymore. The Jesus who wants us to be our fully realized selves, the people who can do work and also know when it's time, can balance the work with the conversation. And mostly, I think what this story gives us is that our focus should always be on the relationship, not the stuff. I think what Jesus bristles at is Mary's complaint that she doesn't get any help. That she comes out and she's all worried and worked up, as opposed to, could I get some help? Make her help me. Make her do it. That's who I want. I don't want you. I don't want anybody. Stop what you're doing and come help me. She is a little bossy, right? Martha is a little bossy. So I think the thing is to focus on the relationship. Her sister is not less than. Her sister is equal with her. And in fact, I believe Jesus would say, and you're right here with me. I am here in human form and one of you. And we know eventually they all get it because they're at the cross. They all get it that it's about the relationship. It's about the love. It's not about the who's doing what, when, where, how. It's about tending the relationships. And I'm here to tell you, I'm terrible at this. I am often terrible at this. I like to get stuff done. And I have run over some people at various times because I go quick. I had somebody describe, who I work with in Indivisible, say, you know, working with you is like trying to board a moving train. And that was a very sweet way to say, and funny, because you know I like humor, to say, slow down so that we can help you. Slow down. We want to participate too, but you're moving too fast and you're doing too much. And oh, and by the way, could we have a conversation? Boy, am I guilty of this. You have no idea. Because you see me on Sunday when I slow down. People during the week have seen me, right, Terry? I'm looking at Terry. She's like, yeah. It's okay. I'm calling myself on this. But we all do it to some extent or another, especially the busier we are. What we also don't know is how many other people were involved in this meal. Was it just the three of them? I doubt it. I bet all the disciples are there. I bet everyone else is there. And by saying she's doing the better part, she's saying it's okay for you to be part of the conversation. And the other disciples may have been a little iffy on that point. The other people might be, why is a woman participating? He's got to defend Mary and not send her back in the kitchen. So the invitation, again, is to focus on the relationship. Yes, get your stuff done and make time for your spiritual practice and claim your space in the discussion. Don't let anybody tell you you're not welcome to be part of the fullness of spiritual community, of the fullness of whatever community you're part of. I know Dan and Brian are okay with me saying, and Alex as well, we're a lot of women here. Hold your ground. Be Martha. Be Martha and say, yeah, I belong here. It's okay. You don't have to tell me to go somewhere else. I get to hold my own here. And may it be so that we find the love of Jesus that transcends the ways that the world wants to put us in little boxes, and let us be the fullness of who we are. May it be so for all of us.